जो विसारी जुगल चरण सोल चिन्ह जेह नजर समीपे रहो हमारी एह। श्री हरि कृष्ण महाराजनी जय। घनश्याम महाराजनी जय। As time goes out of our hands, we cannot control that time anymore. What is the past is the past. But the time which is to come in the future, that we can definitely control. The time that is coming is in our hands to make, to control. It's in our hands to make our own destiny, if we can say. As the new year comes, we celebrated and said goodbye to the year 2012. And now a new year begins, the year 2013. As the new year begins, each and every person tends to make a new goal or a new resolution for the new year. Meaning people try to give up bad habits and try to make good habits, or even try to make goals which will help them on a financial status or a social status or at any kind of level. But as devotees and as spectators from the religious world, I had a question for you. Do we know what kind of goal we should make? Do we know what kind of resolutions we should make? Before you answer my question, I want to define to you the two main words in my question: goal and resolution. A goal is something that you want to achieve. It may be short-termed or long-termed. A short-term goal, for example, is to get good grades for the upcoming semester. Or another short-term goal is to eat less sweets for a couple months or even a year. On the other hand, a long-term goal can be considered to graduate from college or to become a doctor. These are all long-term goals. Recording button. Now, what I've described to both of you, what I've described, these two terms, short and long, are goals that need to be taken into consideration. What kind of goal do I want to make? A long-term goal or a short-term goal? Also, we talked about resolution. Resolution is some kind of change in your life. That can also be long-term or short-term, such as giving up a bad habit, like biting your nails or watching too much TV. These are our resolutions, such as I want to watch less TV for the year, or I want to give up the bad habit of smoking cigarettes. These are all resolutions. Now, back to my question. Do we know what kind of resolutions or goals we need to make for our life? Just think, are we making goals on the surface, or are we making goals that will help us attain something beyond this world? Usually, the ordinary person tends to make goals which are only helping him in this lifetime. But if we do believe in the afterlife, if we do believe that there's something more after this life, then my question to you is, shouldn't we make a goal that that can also affect that lifetime? Obviously, we should. Everyone tends to make financial, social, or any kind of other resolutions. But there's something more that I need you to find in yourself. There's something more that I need you to go deep down and look and take out so that it can help you attain something beyond this world. Now, we tend to make goals which are physical or something that will help us financially or socially. But do we make any goals that will affect our spirit, our soul, or even our inner mind? Just think for 1 second. Why do we make goals? What is the reason for making goals? Obviously, you want to see progress in your life. Each and every person, each and every human being, after they're born, there's two things that they do. One is to survive. That's their first nature. Whatever it takes, a person always seeks for survival, meaning food, shelter, or any kind of mode to survive. That's the first thing. And after survival is fit, after survival has been firm, and that person is confident that I am surviving in this world, then a second goal a person tends to make, or a second, you can say, belief that one has, is to spread one's self in the world, meaning to make progress somehow, to be known in this world, to do something out of the ordinary. These two are human natures which each and every human has in them. Now, obviously, we need to make progress, and that's one of the most primary things after survival. But what do we consider progress to be? What is progress in our mind? Do we feel that progress is getting good grades? Sure, that is progress, because you're helping yourself out to get an education and to do well in school. That is progress. Is that only it, or is there something more? As devotees of God, we tend to forget our true goal. This is my point. We tend to forget what we're here for. God gives us a human body for some kind of purpose in this life, to do something in this life. But what is it that the person has to do? One has to find oneself. It cannot be done just without not thinking or without any kind of guide. But as spectators of the religious world, our ultimate goal is to attain God. This is what we're here to do. All the other things, such as all the other goals and all the other resolutions we make, are only for this world, and they only play a temporary role. But to attain God, to have communion with God, to have a connection, a bond with God, this is what the human soul or the human body needs to do. The soul has to progress in this way. All the goals one makes are only beneficial for this lifetime. We can say that any goal that we make, it's only going to progress our life here in this world. But just think, what will help us in the world after? What will help us to attain the divine abode of Akshardham? That we need to figure out. For many, many years, we've been making many goals and resolutions. Every year a new year comes, every year we make a new goal. it keeps going as a cycle. But my message to all of you today is that we don't only want to stay in this cycle, but we want to go outside the box. You want to think not only inside, but you want to become more broad. And to do this, you will have to understand the point I'm trying to make. Even if one isn't religious, one still needs to understand the fact that everyone has to attain God. Now, all the things we do in this world, spiritually related goals, we make sometimes. But on the main, you can say that we tend to make goals which are more related to the world. But all these things are counted in the record books of God. So there is a benefit, obviously. But to look back on the words to attain God, those are the key words. Let me ask you, haven't we attained God? We have. We have His darshan. We have His devotion. We can perform any kind of devotion to please Him. We know He is the Supreme Lord. All these are characteristics of something we have attained. Obviously, that is God. But even more than that, focus on the word attain. The way I'm using the phrase to attain God has more depth to it. There's a deeper meaning inside the word attain. Now, what I mean by attain in Gujarati means shakshatkar, or translated in English means manifest. In Vachnamrut, Sarangpur 3rd chapter, Shree Maharaj gives an example or a meaning of shakshatkar. Shakshatkar means manifest before one with absolute clarity. This is the meaning of shakshatkar. But we can just simply define it as manifest. Now we can even say that we have received the manifest form of God. But what I mean is, can we experience God constantly? His presence, His glory, His divine incidents? If we can, then yes, your goal is accomplished. But if we can't do this, that means we still have to attain God. Meaning, this should be one of our primary goals. Now, we mentioned that the word goal has two parts, short-term goal and long-term goal. But I want to add to that there's a goal which has no kind of time restriction. There's no kind of limit. And such is goal of attaining God. There is no limit to this. There is no short term or there's no long term. And even after we attain God, that's forever. So there's no bounds or boundaries to such kind of goal that we're talking about today. If we haven't reached such an elevated spiritual state, which I just talked about, where one can constantly experience God, then we need to make a goal, like the one I mentioned. But to attain God is no easy process. Man can build skyscrapers. We can say the Eiffel Tower, or the Sears Tower, or right now, the Freedom Tower, which is being built in New York City. We can say that the man has also traveled to the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench. We can also say that man has traveled to the moon and has landed on the moon. These are all tasks that the human man has done. But the man has not attained a communion or a relationship with the supreme entity himself. We have not made a connection with God. Why is it so difficult? Think, what is so difficult about attaining God? Well, there's 4 factors that I came upon after researching that really affect and keep us away from God. First and foremost, number 1 is Maya. Also, it can be known as an illusion. Now, it's not an illusion which plays with your eyes or your mind, but such kind of materialism in the world. Money, cars, homes, any kind of materialism, any kind of thing that keeps you away from God. Anything, even a person. This is all called Maya. Now in Vachanamrut, Garuda, 1st chapter, 34th Vachanamrut, Shashtriji Maharaj says that God has set in motion such that each man has attraction towards each woman, and each woman has attraction towards each man. Such is the process of the world. But to become beyond that, to become free from all that, that has to be done in order to attain God. This is the strongest out of the 4 factors which keeps us away from being or making a connection with the Lord himself. Now, the second is the lack of understanding. Meaning, I'm not talking about educational or academic understanding. The lack of spiritual knowledge, wisdom, we can say. There's 3 parts to that. 1 is to realize that the world is only temporary. Even nowadays in science, scientists have calculated the age of the world, and they know that in billions or how many ever years, the earth will end, blow up, or be annihilated, or whatever. They know that this world is temporary. Obviously, if the world is temporary, all the things inside of it are also temporary. That can also be said. Now, to understand that the world is temporary, not only through your thought process, but to understand it in your soul, to have a firm belief, that's the first understanding. The second understanding is to believe that the world is false and God is the truth. He is the embodiment of happiness. To understand this is the second point. And the third is to understand that the soul is myself. Meaning, even if we have attained this body, not to believe oneself as the body, and to believe oneself as the soul. This is a form of understanding. To gain these 3 forms of understanding, one can break the bondages of everything, and one can attain God. But due to our lack of understanding, this makes it difficult to reach our goal. The third factor that I came up with is the lack of desire. Now, in the world, we have a desire to become a doctor, or we have a desire to earn a lot of money, or we have a desire to do some kind of great task. These are all desires, but the only desire missing in the world, the only desire missing in our minds is the desire for God. People think that what will I receive by joining myself with God? What will I get? I have everything here in this world. I have a home. I have a car. I have money. What else is there? These are the thoughts a person has who lacks desire. But what I mean is a desire to attain God, meaning to have a deep down desire that I want to attain God. This is what we need to do. And we lack this. Due to this, our mind is not attracted towards godly related activities such as devotion, service. We tend to lack this. Due to this, our attraction is not there. And we tend to find bliss inside of materialistic things. That's why our mind is attracted towards that. But if we divert our mind, if we divert the flow of our mind from materialism and divert into the form of God, the scriptures of God, the devotion of God, the saints of God, all these things are parts of God himself, then our desire to attain God will grow. And when this happens, then no other things in the world will be able to influence you or to make you or to infatuate you, meaning you'll only desire for God. So this is the third factor. And the fourth and last factor that I thought of is our own laziness. We can even see this fault when we are going to school or working, such as when we go to school, we get projects and we have tests which have been told from a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead. Yet, we tend to procrastinate. We tend to be lazy and only study the night before the test. Or we tend to do projects and homework the day before it's due, or even the day that it is due. This is all our laziness. Now, this has to do with the world. But what do I mean by laziness in a spiritual factor? We don't, even if we have the chance and opportunity to go to temple on Saturday, yet we're lazy and we don't have any kind of desire yet, so we stay home or we make an excuse. We're lazy to do the devotion of God, such as even read a single book regarding the talks or divine incidents of God. Yet, we can see that we tend to read the magazines that come out every month, or we tend to read news on the internet or newspapers. Yet we're not lazy on these factors, but we tend to be lazy only in the spiritual world. Due to this, we cannot attain God. Due to this, we cannot join ourselves with Him. But after telling you these 4 factors, you're probably wondering, sure, these are 4 factors that are keeping me away from God, but what is in God? What is there that why should we join with God? What is the reason for that? What is the reason for becoming religious, and what is the reason for devoting your time, your precious time, into devotional acts, into godly related activities? What is the reason for this? The reason for this is for millions and millions. This is just a number I'm giving. It's not accurate. It's a bigger number, but I'm just giving you something that you can look into your perspective. For millions and millions of lifetimes, we've been going through this cycle of birth and death, doing these same kinds of things, doing these same kinds of activities for so many ages. Yet, we have not attained the bliss that our soul is looking for. What does the soul want? The soul wants happiness. Now, if it can't find it in anything, it will look for the last thing, which is materialism. But if the soul is able to see that there's pleasure, there's happiness, not temporary, but permanent, in the form of God, in the activities of God, then one would also be attracted and diverted to that point. So, the main reason is to get out of this cycle of life and death and to attain ultimate happiness, which is forever, which will never go away or vanish. Just think, if one had a really good desire to eat ice cream, for example, then all day one's been desiring that I want to eat ice cream, I want to eat ice cream. Sure, that at the end of the day, one gets ice cream, then one's satisfaction has been, one is satisfied. But then the next day, one has another desire to eat something else or do something else, meaning our desires are endless, yet we don't even feel fulfilled in our heart. That's why we want to keep engaging in such kinds of activities. But the bliss that's in the form of God, the bliss that is in the service of God, His saints and devotees, is and has no kind of time, and such that it is not temporary, but it's forever, and one will be fulfilled in one's heart. One will feel such kind of satisfaction in one's heart. So this is the reason why one should join with God. This is the reason. But in order to do this, one has to remove these four factors. But to remove these four factors, obviously, just like how in school, one needs a professor or a teacher in order to progress through each grade, in order to go from high school to college. In the same way, also on the spiritual path, one needs some kind of teacher or professor in order for one to help one attain God. So, I want you to dwell on the points that I told you in this lecture, and in our next lecture, we'll talk about how can we attain God easily in such an easy technique, with an easy technique and form. And that is only through the guidance of the Ekantik Satpurush. Saying this, Jai Swaminarayan. Hare Krishna Maharajani Jai. Sri Patim Sridharam Sarvadeveshwaram Bhakti Dharmatmanam Vasudevam Hare Madhavam Kesavam Kamdam Karnam Sri Swaminarayanam Nilkantam Bhaje. Hare Krishna.